joining us today for our annual Ladies' Lunch. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Rhonda Walker, Associate at North Road Investment Council. I am very excited to be here today and introduce my friend Barb. We go back about 10 years or so, and what can I say about Barb? She is a very special person. I admire her incredible drive, her zest for life, and her passion. Love, kindness shines bright. She has an amazing connection with people, and we get to enjoy her today. I could not put her book down. I read it in 2 afternoons. I am not a speed reader at all. The girls in my book club, they are speed readers, and they're also reading Barb's book this month. I felt true emotion throughout this book. Laughter, tears, and wonder. Her book hit #1 on Amazon just a few hours after it was released. Not bad for a memoir called I Finally Have the Smoking Hot Body I've Always Wanted, Having Been Cremated. It's quirky, hilarious, a heartfelt tribute to her mother, nearly 2-decade journey with Alzheimer's. A story that somehow made me, as I mentioned, and I'm sure many readers, laugh, cry, and want to call their moms. Barb has been featured on CBC. She's earned multiple literary awards and even joined the Edmonton Opera as a panelist for the Bluebeard Castle, a love story shadowed by dementia. She comes to us from Peace River, Alberta, where she and her husband Gord run several businesses, including a few Tim Hortons, while raising 4 wonderful kids and collecting more memories and stories. Who better to talk about love, loss, and laughter through Alzheimer's than someone who's witnessed it with compassion, courage, and a wicked sense of humor. Let's give Barb a warm welcome, and she's going to tell us her story.
Oops. As I break the mic, thanks so much for that. Okay. So, there's me, there's my mom. I have a funny story to start with for you today. I'm going to take you back to a moment in my mom's kitchen when I went back. It was in the early days of her initial onset. Not diagnosed, but it was a time when we knew things were happening. So picture me in her kitchen. She's sitting at the table. She loved Kraft cheese slices melted in a cast iron pan and scraped until there's these chunks of burnt cheese. Now, it sounds horrible. It's processed cheese. It's delicious. You have to trust me, it's delicious. She had the standard. You need a cast iron pan, a couple of tablespoons of butter, butter makes everything better, and 5 slices of Kraft singles. They had to be 5, no more, no less. So she's guiding me from the table. Remember to do it this way and just make sure it gets a little creamy and processy, and then scrape it. And don't cut my toast into triangles. And don't do rectangles because I don't like those either. So the whole piece of toast. Got it, Mom? No problem at all. I've got it. It's almost ready. Finish it up, butter the toast, put on this gooey, burnt-looking mess. It does look disgusting, but again, trust me, it's very yummy. And put it on a plate, and I hand it to her. She looks up at me, loving eyes. She bats her eyes a little bit. Thanks, Gary. Well, I'm not Gary, just to let you know. Gary's a man. Gary was my cousin. Gary was 400 pounds and drank Coke like it was going out of style. But in that moment, I was Gary. I became Gary. And with Alzheimer's, correcting somebody doesn't preserve the truth, it just breaks the moment. And we had a moment there. We had one crazy stinky cheese moment where I became Gary. It didn't matter to me. It did matter to Mum though. So I hand her the cheese scrapings and say, "You're welcome, Aunt Sybil." She was happy. Correcting her at that time would have shattered the moment, because correcting somebody with Alzheimer's, you have to learn to give up what's true for what's real in that moment. And in that moment, I had to become Gary for her. I was okay with that. Ladies, I have to thank you for being here with North Roads today and listening to me. Carrie, Marshall, Misha, Rhonda, thank you very much. Thank you, ladies. I know you're very busy, and to come from your day-to-day schedule and come out and hear me talk is a real honor, so I appreciate that so much. And I have to say, the fashion in this room is amazing, so thanks for sharing. I have a few new fashion ideas now, so thanks for that. Now, I hope, well, when Rhonda said it, I heard the sound of laughter, which is great. So my book, I finally have the smoking hot body I've always wanted, having been cremated. Now, I'm not sure if anyone in the room has written a book or not, but to me, the title is critical. And so I start writing and writing and writing, and Kim, brilliant writing coach and now friend, said, Barb, it's okay. The title will come. Somewhere along the line, the title will present itself. Okay, I'm going to trust you, Kim. We had a meeting scheduled on Friday. She texted me on a Monday and said, I know the title of your book. I know what your title must be. It's like, okay, I emailed back, what's it? Tell me. I'll tell you on Friday. Yeah, she had me hanging for the whole week. She didn't tell me. So we have a Zoom call on Friday, and she says, I'll tell you at the end of the call. And I said, if you don't tell me now, I'm hanging up. So she said, you already wrote the title of your book. It's in the obituary. I wrote Mom's obituary in 2019. I used Mom's voice one last time. Mom hadn't spoken to anybody for years and years. So writing her obituary in first person as though she had written it gave Mom her voice back one last time in order to say goodbye. Well, wouldn't you know it, that crazy obituary that we had way too much wine over when we were talking about it turned out to go viral. Hundreds of thousands of people viral were talking about it. News outlets from Turkey to Toronto and everywhere else used the line that was written in her obituary, I finally have the smoking hot body I've always wanted, having been cremated. Kim was right. That then became the title of the book. And it already had humor, it already had credibility, because all these news outlets are waiting for that one media hook, and they already had it from this crazy obituary. So that's how that came to be as far as the title goes. So if you're writing a book or if you've written a book, you know titles are critical, and just wait for it. The title will present itself. Now, that line was pure cheeky Mom, even though I had written it. It was unfiltered, it was hilarious. It was really reflective of who Mom was. So it just made sense that using that line was wonderful. So from one unforgettable woman to one unforgettable line, those 14 little words became what the world needed to hear at that time. So it sparked this global conversation about the messiness of Alzheimer's, the light that we need in that fog. We need clarity, not chaos, added to that. So because of this huge conversation, and all these people were emailing, we need more Sybil stories, we need to hear more about your mom, that's when it became a book. 2 years or so after, a little bit longer than that, to write and to get it out there, but that stuck, that absolutely stuck. And a woman came up and she said, I bought your book. She said, and I only bought it because I remembered the title from your obituary. And I was like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. But she's a habitual obituary reader. Can you say that? So she knows her obituaries. So as Rhonda said, it became a bestseller within 12 hours. I had the opportunity to talk to CBC Mindariwal on Radioactive with an interview with Holly Bearland from the Alzheimer's Society, Executive Director. 10% of all book sales goes to the Alzheimer's Society, whether you buy it online on Indigo or Amazon or from me personally. Those funds are given back to the Alzheimer's Society. So there's a bit of a purpose with your purchase as well, which I think is really important that we give back, because they were so invaluable to the care that we had looking for things with Mum. I have a couple of podcasts coming up in the end of October, and I just heard the gal interview Beverly McLaughlin, the former Governor General, and I thought, how am I talking after she's talking? But she's so down to earth, and she had such amazing things to say that I just felt like, hey, I'm glad I'm one of the gals that is honored to be interviewed at the end of the month. So I'll keep you posted on that. Keep in touch. Oh, a little close to that one. Okay, funny little story now about the title and the book cover. So I published the book independently through Amazon, and at the back of the Amazon there's a Kindle publishing where everything gets uploaded. Kim calls me the night before, and I don't know if you can tell with text with some people, but you can read the energy and the panic behind a text. With Kim, her texts were screaming at me. I can't find your book. I can't find your book. It launches tomorrow. I can't find it on Amazon. I was like, oh my God, it's about midnight. And we're like, what do? You can't call Amazon. Well, maybe you can. I didn't try, but I'll have to call Amazon in the morning. What happened? She said, you need to put filters in there. So you have to filter, and you have to add this and add this. So what I want you to do, I want you to take the link, and you're going to put it on social media. You're going to send it all to your family and friends, and they have to use that link. If I type in Barb Drummond, I get some lady from the UK that's writing on historical castles in the UK. And she said, I can't put in the name of your book, it doesn't come up. So she sent me the link. The launch was the next morning. I madly sent out this email at midnight to say, okay, you can't find me, I'm not on Amazon apparently, use this link. Okay, use the link, everybody's ready. I call Amazon to explain that I can't find me on Amazon. I can't find my book on Amazon. What's happened? So about 40 minutes on the phone with this gentleman, and he comes back and he said, I've discovered why we can't find you. I said, okay, you want to share? And he said, well, when you upload it into the back of Amazon in the Kindle publishing, they've classified it as 18 plus, scantily clad, smoking hot body. Your mom's in the erotica section of Amazon. Yeah. I said, are you kidding me? She's an elderly woman with varicose veins in a one-piece bathing suit, smoking a cigarette, and she's in the erotica section? He says, you never know what turns people on these days. So, I kind of think Mom had something to do with it as payback for putting her picture in a bathing suit on a front cover of a book on Amazon. So we laugh now, but the thoughts at the time, all my thoughts and all my words were in panic text, for sure. So why start with She Called Me Gary? I start with that story because it's kind of funny. It's heartbreaking, confusing, deeply human, sort of all at once. It grabs your attention and invites laughter, and then there's some empathy that comes in after. You see a few heads nodding, you recognize, oh, I know what's going on with her mom. And in that single moment, when I looked at Mom and she looked at me and called me by Gary's name, it was absurd and it was tender, but it also reminded me that that was the day that I knew we were entering a different phase or a different stage of Alzheimer's with Mom. One that the facts didn't matter as much as the feelings did with her. And that's relatable. Everybody in this room has had an encounter with somebody with memory issues, perhaps dementia, diagnosis with Alzheimer's, or some form of illness that hinders who they are now compared to what they were at one time, or the way you knew that person at one time. So logic steps aside, and love has to show up, but it's all in different forms. So I open with that not just because it's kind of funny, but it also prepares you for what's in my book. There are hilarious moments in there. Marshall and I were talking earlier. He said, "Are you going to read this one?" And I said, "Well, there's so many, if people have read it, I don't want to be like a trailer that spoils it all and you read the book and say, oh, she said all the funny parts in her talk." So I won't share all of them, but I will share some that hopefully you'll think is funny and relatable. And you'll learn about sort of the grief process through the book. You'll get to know Mom before Alzheimer's, during Alzheimer's, and the final stage. You'll also understand the idea of caregiving. It's not a how-to book. I do have some footnotes at the bottom that share different things about Alzheimer's, but it's not a guide. It's not how to care for somebody, but it does have examples in there of how to respond to somebody perhaps with Alzheimer's. And the story's not sanitized. I share my guilt in there of being a daughter who lived far away. And it was quite a cathartic, therapeutic process writing it for me. It was sort of a grieving process, I suppose, at the same time. Just be warned, there's a few potty words in there. I do drop the F-bomb on occasion, and some references to inappropriate finger gestures. So you're fairly warned. Mom loved to laugh, and she loved to make people laugh. And so I've adopted that, where I cope in a difficult situation with humor. And it's not to mock. It's, for me, a coping mechanism. Or if you've been in a crowd of people and it's a highly inappropriate place to laugh, well, you do, and then it sort of sparks that. And you have that one friend, I know you do, that you don't dare look at in a situation, or you're both going to burst out laughing and try and hide that one. So I tend to think of laughter as a bit of a muscle, where if we flex it, we can survive some of the things that we probably didn't ever think that we could survive. So the example of that is viewing my mother's body at the funeral home. Chapter 6, the arrangements. My brother Brian knocks on my hotel room door. I'm ready, I'm waiting. Bob, Brian, Brenda, and I are going to the funeral home. Bruce will join us later in the week. Reynolds' funeral home was in Bracebridge, and it's been there forever. It's a quiet, peaceful, familiar place. It wasn't my first time here, but it was for my mom, and it feels weird. The funeral director greets us. His name is Bond, David Bond. He's a tall, kind-looking man with a genuine smile and professional attitude. I instantly like him and think, Mom's in good hands. Introductions aside, we all chuckle about all our names starting with the letter B, and we start to chat about the particulars of Mom's service. We discuss details, sign papers, and we're given the lowdown on how to move forward. Then David looks up and says gently, "Would you like to see your mom?" Well, an elevator rattles and stops on the other side of the wall. Mom has arrived. David invites us into a smaller room with low light. Mom's on a gurney draped in a rich burgundy velvet cloth. Hard to believe our once vibrant, full of life mother lies there so serenely. She looks peaceful. She looks like Mom, but oddly not. The four of us line up alongside Mom, Bob, me, Brenda, Brian. I panic. Okay, maybe this is not a good idea. Why did I agree to this? I think this was a mistake. Did I really want this to be the last time seeing my mom, for the very last time? It's too late. Here I am, peering over her, taking her all in. It was surreal. I draw closer, and then I spot her fingertips. They're stained with a peculiar shade of black, and I start to giggle. Earlier, I had asked my sister to capture Mom's fingerprints for me as a keepsake, or perhaps a future tattoo. My whimsical idea turned into a messy experiment, leaving traces of ink on almost every finger. I have trouble controlling my laughter at this point, and I point Mom's hands out to the others, and then I let out a snort just like Mom. We can't help but laugh through our tears at the absurdity of this moment. It's funny how humor has a way of weaving its way into threads of the fabric of reality at the worst possible times. I hear a subtle click, and my brother Bob has reached over my mom and took a picture of her fingertips. It's a photo that will encapsulate forever our polarized emotion at that very moment. We try to suppress our laughter, but it makes it worse. And we're choking, we're snorting, we're busting with laughter. We scramble out of that viewing room like rats fleeing from a sinking ship, and we come face to face with the funeral director. So David, you've just witnessed that this is not an ordinary family. He grins and he says, well, I gathered that. I read your mom's obituary. Back in the front room of the funeral parlor to confirm details of Mom's cremation, her service, and other formalities, the question of her blackened fingertips comes up. Brenda glares at me in a huff. That's my sister. Barb, this is one of the most, if not the most stupid things you could ever ask me to do. I sent Rachel to Staples to get an ink pad. The girl at the store had no idea what an ink pad was. The clerk asked Rachel what it was for. Rachel said to her, it's to take a fingerprint of my dead grandmother's finger? Rachel said the salesperson screwed up her face as though she smelt stinky cheese and responded slowly with, I don't think we have any of those. Then I tried Sharpie. I couldn't get any of Mom's prints. Now her fingers are black. They're permanently black forever. She shrieks, I think I'm gonna pee my pants. David roars with laughter after hearing the story. You know, Barb, we offer services for capturing digital fingerprints. No ink pads or Sharpies required. Well, I know that now. Which fingerprint would you like to have digitalized? I blurt out, this one, extending my middle finger and wiggling it in front of him. And then I think, oh, maybe he's taken aback. But then he bursts out with laughter. We can certainly make that happen. Now to describe it on this form. And he leans over his papers. My sister pipes up, just put right hand, middle bird flipping finger. She was always doing that to Dad. Can this get any crazier? It does. So, thank you. So on this one, you can see that is Mom's digitalized fingerprint that they gave from the funeral home. Because Brenda couldn't get the fingertips after what happens to a body after they pass away, so she had these dark black, and you could see where Brenda had tried every finger to try and get this and put it on a piece of paper. Then Sharpie, it was just, she was beside herself having been asked to do this. And she said, if you have any more stupid ideas, I am not doing them. Nothing. Don't ever ask me again. So I didn't. You can see Mom always laughing. She's hamming it up with her brother, Bruce, another B. And you can see where David Bond put the right bird finger. So that's what that is. So I don't mean to be flipping everybody Mom's bird finger, but it's there, just so you know. Now, another really awkward conversation. So when you're talking about the end of life conversations, and Gordon and I on the way down here, he said, you know, we never talked about it, like when we die, like when you die, do you want flowers or do you want me to go to a certain group or organization? So what brought this on? Like, are you trying to tell me something here? He says, no, we just never talked about it. And it's one of those awkward conversations that, yeah, how did you lead into that? We're driving down Highway 43 and you're talking about what I want for when I pass away, and then it evolved into a more complex conversation, obviously, but we don't tend to have those conversations. But my mom was all into having awkward conversations. This is a blog story that didn't make it into the book, but one I thought that I should share today since we're talking about conversations or perhaps future planning. It's called The Talk on the Dock. I never used to associate swimming with a sex education class. But that was before my mother tried to have the talk with all of her 5 teenage children, the birds and the bees talks, her special talk on the dock. And I thought, the dock of all places, this was our freedom, this was our carefree place as kids growing up, and you want to have the talk on the dock. Where we swam, we pretended that life was carefree, we didn't have to worry about anything except swimming and splashing. And this is what my mom decides? Well, my brothers strutted around like they knew everything, and they said, yeah, we'll have that talk. What do you want to know, Sibs? They were, offering to give seminars and answer any questions that my mom might have. My sister, on the other hand, she was on the verge of throwing herself into the lake when my mom sat on the edge of the dock and was dangling her feet saying, oh, honey, it can be such a beautiful thing. My sister wanted to hurl her lunch. Beautiful? Are you kidding me? Do you know what vision's in here right now? I don't think it's so beautiful, Mom. So, I saw the pattern. One by one, we were being picked off and getting docked. And I thought, no way, not me, not gonna happen. So from that point on, every time Mom suggested that we go for a swim, I had something else to do. I had the dog to brush. I had my books that needed to be alphabetized. There was a sock drawer that I had to find socks to be matched. I was not going to have that talk with her. And I avoided a full summer to avoid her dockside biology class. It wasn't until years later she said, why didn't you ever go swimming with me that summer? I said, Mom, are you kidding me? The last thing I wanted was the talk on the dock. And she goes, oh, I hadn't realized I missed you. There were so many of you. I was mortified. Mom, you have 5 children. How many people did you give that talk on the dock to? And she just sort of smiled, laughed, shrugged her shoulders, gave out a snort, and there we were. I did not have that talk on the dock. It was classic Sybil. 5 children, endless trauma opportunities for her, and 1 successful dock dodger. That was me. But the thing is, Mom tried to have that awkward conversation. So in her own awkward, foot-dangling, wiggle, watery way, she tried, and she was successful with 4 out of the 5, and maybe more, who knows. So it brings us to a talk that nobody wants to have. So there's my mom, sort of gradually through her younger years. The talk that nobody wants to have, particularly as women. I mean, we talk about a lot of things, we plan a lot of things, who's bringing what to Thanksgiving, creating Christmas lists already, making sure that everybody's taken care of, the meds are there, casseroles are taken care of, whatever needs to be planned, we plan. But we don't always plan for the moment that we absolutely need something planned well prior to the event, which could be health, which could be end-of-life plans, financial planning. We don't talk about the what ifs. What if I forget my husband? What if I call my kids Gary and make them cheese scrapings for the rest of their life? Or what if my kids have to choose a care home for me and I didn't want to be there because so-and-so and I taught together years ago and she wasn't very nice? So how are they going to know that, right? But those conversations, as hard as they are not fun conversations, but they have to happen and they matter. Like the gene test that I'm not ready for. So with Alzheimer's, there are deterministic genes. So there's genes that are linked to either early onset Alzheimer's or late onset Alzheimer's. So you can go and get tested to see if you have one of those determinant genes. My kids have asked me, are you going to get tested? And I'm thinking, I don't think I'm brave enough. I don't think I want to know. Because even though these genes indicate the likelihood of developing Alzheimer's, they're not deterministic. It doesn't determine certainty that you're going to have Alzheimer's or get Alzheimer's. I think the stats are a 61% chance higher, but it's still not determinant. So here I'm thinking, okay, I go get tested, and I've had a really busy week, and I'm thinking, did I do payroll? Did I pay our property taxes? Did I buy that birthday gift? Who was that I was talking to this morning? I can't remember their name. I'll be 60 in April. My mom was 62 when she was diagnosed. It scares the hell out of me, I have to tell you. So I said to the kids, I don't think I want to know. Because if I go do something stupid or something that's a natural part of aging, and I go put the milk in the cupboard and it's supposed to go in the fridge, and I'm just so distracted. We have really busy lives. I'm going to think, is this the beginning of my end? Is this me? Am I losing? Is that the first indication that I'm losing it? Well, I don't know about you, but I don't want that extra stress. And then, of course, extra stress with that and how it can affect your health, it can affect your mental health, and so on. I don't think I want to know. I have a friend in Ontario, much younger than me, and he was tested for the gene because both his parents and one grandparent had Alzheimer's. And Michael said, I'm going for the test. And I said, well, you are my new hero because I don't think I could. I said, what about your sisters? He said, nope, they're too chicken. And I said, well, I'm with your sisters on this one, but you know, I'm glad that you're making that decision, and let me know if you want to, what the results are and what you're going to do with that knowledge. So he called me up and he said, well, put me on the list of the home. Ah, you're kidding. He tested positive for late onset. Okay, that's a bonus. But I said, so Michael, what are you going to do with that information though? Now that you know that, are you going to change anything? Are you going to do anything about it? He said, that's it. I'm exercising, I'm watching what I eat, I'm going to do memory exercises, I'm going to be trying to stave that off as long as I can. Well, I saw him at a board meeting in the spring. He hadn't changed a thing. He hadn't made any plans, he hadn't done anything. He went back to his typical life of not worrying about things. And that's where you find people hypervigilant, or you know what, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. So that's what I told the girls. I said, you know what, let's plan that it's going to happen now. Let me give you a flashlight for the fog that I might be in the future. I don't know exactly what's involved with that, but I do know that we need to make a plan. So I've started already. I have an admin binder full of all sorts of websites and banking and passwords and whatever else you can think of. I actually have an end-of-life planner, and get this. It says, I finally have the smoking hot body I've always wanted, having been cremated, but I didn't make it. You can buy that one off Amazon too. So, but it has everything that you need to think about for end of life so that if they need that, they're ready. And I'm thinking that that's a huge gift that you can give your children if they know what you could be encountering, or they could be encountering in my future. So one time, my mom, before she was diagnosed, knew that Gord and I were very busy. Our fourth child was born. Clark was born with Down syndrome and significant health issues. And so my dad called and said, hey, Mom would like to come out and give you a hand. She'd like to come out and help. I said, okay, Dad, send her out. Happy to have Mom. Mom wasn't a help. That was the first time I realized that there was something going on. She helped us move houses, and she was packing up while I was taking care of Clark and busy with the businesses. And she said, okay, honey, this is here, and this is here, and I packed the cat litter, the cat's ready to go, and I've got this, and I've got that. And I said, wait, what? What did you pack here? The cat litter. Okay, thanks, Mom. Appreciate that. You might think that's not strange, but we didn't have a cat. So I thought, oh, man. I phoned Dad right away, and I said, you know, something's going on. You have to get Mom some help. You have to take her to find out what's going on. She was diagnosed shortly after. No surprise. But we started to recognize things after that, forgotten names, few family events forgotten, and then making tea bag sandwiches and hints that the disease is going on a little bit further than we recognize. So there's 2 examples in the book where there are things that have happened and how I dealt with it. One was before the diagnosis and then one was after. This was before. "Hey Mom, what are you reading?" Mom appeared to be halfway through a large cover novel. She looked up. "Pardon?" "Just want to know what you're reading." Mom tilted her head toward the book. This one." She lifted it up to show me. The book was upside down. "Is it good?" Mom gazed at the book for a moment and then back toward me. Her eyes reflected a mix of confusion and fear. "Oh yes, very interesting. It's very colorful." I realized this must be quite a challenge for her now. "That's wonderful, Mom. I bet the pictures tell quite a story, don't they? Anything else you want to share about the book?" Mom paused. "Oh, had I pushed for too much information?" "Well, it's a bit jumbled, but I like the colors. They make me happy." It was at this moment I began to grasp the limitations that Alzheimer's imposed on Mom. I cherished the moment and was grateful for the connection, despite knowing this was just the beginning. "Mom," I mentioned gently, "you have the book upside down." "Oh, do I?" She glanced down once again. "So I have. Well, isn't that a new way to read?" She closed her eyes, shook her head, and gave a genuine laugh and a snort. "Ah, Sibs." So it was things like that, and Mom was an avid reader. She absolutely loved reading. So to see her at that, losing something that she was so familiar with and so fond of, was pretty tough. Another one, this was a little bit further on in her diagnosis, and my brother and I had gone to visit her, and we were sitting reminiscing about things that had happened prior. While Brian and I were in Mom's room and Mom dozed in the chair, we also spoke about the time I discovered Mom was wearing her underpants over top of her pants. 3 pair of pants, that is. "Hey Mom, how are you feeling today?" I'm not sure, something doesn't feel quite right." "Well, you look nice. Did you pick out your own clothes?" "Oh, did I? I don't remember, I must have." "These are my clothes, right? They feel a bit odd." I said, "It doesn't matter, Mom, it's okay. Well, you know what, maybe we can make a bit of adjustment, and you've got to have your panties on the inside. They should be next to your hoo-ha." "My what?" "You know, your hoo-ha?" Mom raised her eyebrow and looked at me and she said, "I think I lost that." I laughed. I didn't realize that she was dead serious. "I used to be so good at this." She let out a puff of air. "No worries, Mom, let's get things straightened out a bit. So how about we put things in the proper order? Matching pair of socks. Sound good?" "Oh, thanks for helping me, dear." "It's okay, Mom, we all need a little help sometimes. You're doing great. We'll have you feeling comfortable and looking fabulous again in no time. But I won't be helping you find your hoo-ha." "My what?" So again, another case that you can find humor in things, not to mock, but to cope. Because really, if we really thought about what was happening, we'd be crying all the time. It would be far too tough. When we plan for the hard stuff, we give people the love through clarity instead of chaos. And that, again, that light in the fog. My mom and dad had the unthinkable happen to them. It had to be my dad's decision because it was too late for Mom. They had to get a medical divorce. Now, if you don't know what a medical divorce is, this is when a couple legally divorces, not because they want to, but because the cost of care is so high that staying married disqualified Mom from having financial support. It's basically a paperwork heartbreak. Can you imagine being married 50 years to someone? You've gone through everything from kindergarten to university, casseroles to colonoscopies, everything. And then finally, at the end of your marriage, it's for financial support, and you have to check that box divorce just so that your wife can get a bed in a facility. Dad never took off his wedding ring. He said, she might not remember she's married to me, but I remember I'm married to her. And I think that's what love really looks like. It's what's doing what breaks your heart in order to protect and care for them. Now, for those of you who have read the book, the name Dorothy will be familiar to you. So my dad did have a relationship while Mom was in the home. Now, Mom always said to us, if something should ever happen to me, do not deny your dad companionship. He needs to have people around him. And of course, all 5 of us were scattered. Dad was quite lonely. He and my mom's cousin ended up living together. And she was a companion to him. We knew that Dorothy loved Mom as much as we did. That, Dad, whatever makes you happy. Mom always said that if something should happen to you, we know she meant when she died, but something's happened to Mom. She isn't here in the same capacity. So we gave our blessing, well, one sibling didn't, but we gave our blessing that, you know, Dad, you need to do what you need to do. We're not living in your shoes. This isn't judging here. Long story short, Dad got dumped at 89. Dropping Mom off at the home. When was the last time I saw Mom? I grapple with the timeline and I wonder about my own memory. The last time I remember her being somewhat present was maybe 2004, maybe 2006, when we first placed her in Leisure World. Mom thought she was being hired as nursing staff, which makes complete sense, having Mom been an ER nurse for years. Dad, Brenda, and I sat in the common room putting on brave faces because we knew when we left, Mom would remain. This would be her home now. We tried to chat over coffee and a sweet treat, but Mom was having nothing to do with it. She was agitated and angry. I don't know why I'm just sitting here. I should be in the emergency room caring for patients. This coffee break is too long. This would not be acceptable at Hamilton General, you know. I want to go home. I don't know why I put myself here. She turned up her nose and looked out the window and ignored us for the rest of the visit. So Dad had asked my brother Brian and I to fly back from Alberta and help him put Mom in Leisure World. I couldn't quite figure out why he was so insistent that we came back to help him do that. There were 2 other siblings in Ontario. My other brother was in Vancouver, but he was insistent that we come back. It wasn't until a few months to almost a year into Mom being in the home that we discovered why. He needed somebody to blame. That, well, they put you here, Sybil, not me. They put you here. And it was brought up time and time again over the years. But you know what? I was ready to take the blame. She, in fact, should have been in the home earlier than that. And if he wanted me to take the brunt of that, that's okay. Whatever he needed for that. Because I cannot imagine having to make that decision on my own, which goes back to having things planned so that my kids aren't having to make that decision. We'll give very detailed guidelines as, yeah, put me away, just now's the time. When you see this, now's the time. So I was really hoping that Gary had dropped her off instead of me at that moment. Now, Dad hadn't planned for the future care for himself or for Mom. And Dad died a few years after that. There's a whole other book in that scenario I'm going to tell you. So the working title on that is The Time I Killed My Father, but it's not what you think. But I did. Anyway, wait for the next book on that one. Dad died in 2022. He had less than $18,000 in the bank and no plans. So the urgency or those difficult talks, if you haven't had them already, have those difficult talks so that your kids or your spouse knows exactly what you want. So, where does that leave us? We've been through a lot together. You've helped me ambush the sex education talk on the dock. You've learned about cheese scrapings that are extremely unhealthy, but you might go home and try them. And we've talked about the what ifs of caregiving, grief, and so on, and planning. And we're still standing. Well, I'm still standing, but here we are. Now, the book has all sorts of humor in it that demonstrate how to deal with difficult situations. It seems like this book has way more than a typical person might have, but that's just my mother. So I want to share a story. It's not the one that Marshall suggested, but I think it's still rather funny. The title of this chapter is called "You Can't Make This Shit Up." I was in the kitchen making Mom's famous Miracle Whip chocolate cake. As I mixed the batter, I thought I heard someone calling my name. Had I imagined it? One more time, only louder. Barbara! Oh, my full name. What'd I do now? I put down the whisk and followed the sound. It was Mum. I went upstairs. The door to the long bathroom was closed, and behind it came Mum's call for help. I tried the door, but it was locked. Mom, are you okay? What's going on? Just come in. I'll explain when you come in. Before I could enter, I had to search for something that would fit inside to release the lock. I found a big pen, pulled out the refill, put it in until I heard the click. Whew. I entered the bathroom, not sure what to expect. I peered toward the little pony wall that separated the toilet and the bathtub. I couldn't see Mum, but I heard her. She was giggling now. I walked a bit further. She was naked, in the tub, on her back, bubbles almost gone, hiding nothing. Her head was at an awkward angle, her eyes closed, and her face scrunched from laughing. Mom, what is going on? Mum laughed harder, and a toot escaped, causing bubble sounds underneath the water, which turned into cause more laughter and more sounds escaping. Mom, what the heck? When she finally got her breath and in between the snorts, I managed to get the story. But the more she spoke, the harder it became to suppress my laughter. Mum had managed somehow to create the perfect suction with the bottom of the bathtub and her back. Attempts to free her were futile. She was stuck as if she had an octopus sucker on her back. It was a moment of confusion and amusement, and I burst out laughing. So can you help me, please? Well, Mom, it looks like I'm in the power position here. She laughed and she said, hurry up, I'm getting cold. Draining the tub wouldn't release the suction. I had to think of something fast. I ran down to the kitchen and looked for something to break the seal. A barbecue probe, no, bad idea. A turkey baster, bad idea. A corkscrew, really bad idea. Come on, Barb. Finally, I grabbed the spatula, the one I was using for the cake. That's a replica. That is totally what it was. Back in the bathroom, I slid the spatula down the side of the tub, under her back, breaking the seal that held her captive. An odd noise punctuated the water. That wasn't me, she blurted. Laughter echoed in the bathroom as we shared this moment of lighthearted absurdity. The ordeal wasn't without its awkward moments, but the hilarity of it all was first and foremost. And to this day, every time I reach for a spatula, I remember the day that little kitchen utensil saved my mother's ass. The naked part, though, I really wish I could unsee. So Mom had given me letters, so no matter where I lived, I'd been in Japan for a while, in Bahamas and different places. No matter where I went, Mom sent me letters. And so when she passed away and I was heading back to Ontario, I grabbed all those letters and thought, this will be something to go through. So in the book, I've included those letters that help move the story forward. The story takes place over about 9 days when I go back to prepare for her funeral. And the letters that are included share the stories of times that Mom and I had together, but they also show Mom's decline the further that you get into the letters and the book. Now, it's sort of a mechanism to take you back and forth in time, and I think it worked well. It lent itself to that. So A lot of the stories that are in there, again, I won't be sharing all of them, but will give you a lot of insight into who my mother was and her sense of humor, because really you just can't make this shit up. She just had so many things happen in her life, like that incident in the bathtub, that you just think, this can't be right, this can't be true, but it is. Now, my mom once called me Gary. Instead of correcting her, I simply chose to be present, to be there for the moment. And the invitation that I leave you with is to be there, to be present. Use humor in those situations. If you have to dive into their reality, then go ahead and do that. My dad had a real tough time doing that because he felt he was lying to Mom, that she needed to be corrected on those things. So that was a huge learning curve for Dad and a big source of frustration for him, because he just couldn't get his head wrapped around the fact that Mom said she was the Queen of England, but she wasn't the Queen of England. So I have another little story to share that involves some rubber gloves. We gather in Brenda's quaint and cozy living room after the funeral. It's decorated with flair, like Mom and Dad's home. The drinks flow and the last remnants of the chapel luncheon spread across the table, but still no sign of the elusive egg salad sandwich. We reminisce more forgotten stories of our youth, and remembered and shared, and each story triggered another story. Oh, remember the time that Eddie the cat ate Brenda's hair ribbon? Oh, right, Eddie. Mom named him Eddie because the cat was always falling asleep, just like Mr. Armstrong. Mr. Armstrong was a lifelong friend. He and Dad would get into all sorts of mischief. We giggled over him falling asleep. Mr. Armstrong was always falling asleep. He worked hard and he slept hard. The Armstrongs would be over for supper, and dessert hadn't even appeared when snores would come from the end of the table. Eddie was asleep again. Well, it's no different than the cat. Once he fell asleep on the phone with my dad, and the air horn couldn't even wake him up. Oh, don't remind me of Eddie eating the ribbon. Brenda scrunches her nose. But I really wanted to wear that ribbon to school, and it was hanging out Eddie's bum. I can barely tell the story. I'm laughing so hard. Mom put on her yellow rubber gloves. She picked up Eddie in one hand and the yellow glove in the other. She grabbed the ribbon with one hand, threw the cat, pulled the ribbon, and that cat eyeballs grew twice their size. Panting for breath, I barely finished. He let out a yell, a sound I'd never heard before. Off he ran, faster than a bullet. Yeah, Mom had this pained look on her face, like she was worried she'd rearranged his intestines or something. We didn't see Eddie for a week after that. By this time, we're all in stitches, we're holding our sides and covering our mouths. Brenda offers quietly, just so you know, I didn't wear that ribbon to school. And fits of laughter started again, tears streaming down our faces. So more and more stories pop up after that, and some are shared in here as well. If you think you have patience, you might think twice when you're trying to convince someone that the person in the mirror isn't trying to steal their husband. That was a huge challenge for Mom. The paranoia that set in, the things that she would think about that had us on our toes, and really truly trying to be patient was amazing. But when you think about it, that you put your mindset into, this is your mom. She helped create you, so we need to have this respect. There's still a person in there. And that's sometimes often hard to forget. When I think about Mom calling me Gary, so the whole topic of the time that she called me Gary, it wasn't an insult to me. It was a reminder that love outlasts the labels. She might not have remembered me or my name, but the way that she looked at me with so much love in her eyes, that whoever she was looking at in her mind She loved them dearly. And if I was to take on that love that she had in that, thanks, Gary, I'll take it every time. Even if it means being called Gary every now and then. So that ends my little chat. If you have any questions, if you have a book to be signed, I'd be happy to do it. If you have a cousin Gary that you'd like me to sign the book for, I'd be happy to do it. And I really, really thank you very much for coming out of your busy days to share today with me. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a chance to read the book. And please reach out to let me know your thoughts and ideas or questions for the book. Thank you very much, ladies.